don't make us who we are. So I'll dream until I make it real, and all I see is...
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mentorship Mondays with Michelle and Maren. We're back. Well,
I was just going to say that. Welcome back, Michelle.
thank you. And
how are you feeling?
I'm feeling a lot better. A lot better.
Good.
It's been it was a little more complicated than I had thought, meaning it took a little more time to recover. So for anybody that's listening that's waiting for something from me, I'm working through it. I'm working through it. So thank you for all the patience, and thank you for all of the messages. I've got so many beautiful messages and prayers, and a lot of energy sent to me. And Maren and I were just talking for a few minutes before we popped on, and I was sharing with her some of the experiences that I had during my, I'll say my healing period. And it really has been a healing of body, mind, and soul. There has been so much that shifted in me, and we can get into that another time. But anyway, thank you, everybody. So it's nice to be back with you, Maren. I missed you. I always miss our moments, our time together. So it's really good to see you today. And so what we were talking about before we hit the record button is we're actually talking about ascension, and talking about ascension symptoms, and we're just sharing a few things that we've noticed, and we're going to chat about it. We're going to share some information and kind of see where that takes us. And so how are you, Maren? What's new? What's going on?
Nothing is it's boring over here. That is not true, but definitely not like you. But yeah, so I really wanted to talk about this because this has been something that I feel like I've been getting like downloads about this week, and like, what is a spiritual awakening? How do you have one? How do you know if you're having one? I had one, and I did not know what was going on, and I thought I was just I'm gonna say I thought I was going crazy, but I definitely was like, what's happening? So
yeah. What do you when you go back to that time, what do you remember as, like, can you go back into that those early days and really like think about what was happening? What made you even notice that something was changing?
I have to say it was that feeling of like, like, so I started getting really curious. So I have these like kind of steps that have been coming to me as far as like what can kind of like maybe how it would go, how a spiritual awakening would go, or if you're trying to like have a spiritual awakening, like, kind of maybe do these things, because these are what I noticed.
Yeah.
I think like the first one was like having an open mind. Like I was curious. I was interested in spirituality. Like it just kind of took over, and I was like, what is this? I want to know more. I feel like I'm not getting enough information through church. Like I just want to know more. And so, and then that feeling of awe would be like, I would hear something on either like channeling Eric or a different podcast or in a book or in a meditation. And it would just give me this like feeling of like awe. And I just have to say, like, it feels like a fullness. It feels like there's like a beauty to the feeling. Mm-hmm. It's really kind of like a following your heart feeling, like when they say in church, they're like, and his cup overfloweth, or something like that, like I always say that. I'm like, my cup overfloweth right now. Like I feel big, like, like you just well up. And it would be anything from like just being in the moment with my kids, or being in the moment on a walk looking at like nature around me, those things, or just hearing a new concept about like the afterlife and the dimensions and whatnot, and you're just like, oh wow, like it's just this feeling.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you ever get that feeling, or did you ever
Yes.
get that feeling?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, I remember because I've always had that spiritual I always, when it came to interest in the paranormal and psychic, I knew I was psychic and I believed in all of that stuff, but I remember the actual transition of really having my eyes open, which I said before really came um, right through my cancer journey, was I started to really look at death. And it was actually near death experiences that I really
Oh,
started looking at. And I would listen to different podcasts. And then we had some deaths in our family, and that's what really sped it up. And that's what started the seeking. So when you say, like, I was looking up quantum physics, I was looking up spirit guides. That's how I met Eric. Was I wanted to actually, I didn't know what a spirit guide was. I just saw it in Life After Death. I was looking stuff up and saw it, but stuff like that, that real, like, I couldn't put the books down. I was seeking. I was
yeah.
continuously seeking, and I remember that feeling of um, I know this sounds really weird, and when my younger brother and I used to talk about this sometimes, we had this way of describing a Sunday afternoon when we were growing up, and it was like that Sunday afternoon feeling. And it was actually kind of a like a bored feeling, but it was like a lay around, I fall asleep, I'm kind of bored, and that's how I could equate, like, I would feel okay being that way, but it was like all of a sudden my Sunday afternoon, metaphorically, has shifted. And now I see the leaves in a different color. Now I'm
Yeah.
starting to see behind things. Like, it's like everything was zoomed a little bigger. I started looking
Yeah.
behind the reasons to everything. So that's what I really noticed in the beginning. And I
I
started the meditating, and I know you did too.
Yeah. So I just like just the like yeah, you kind of become present,
Yeah.
and everything just becomes more beautiful when you do that. And like to me it came with that feeling too. And at our gym they had just like a glass wall, and this was in Arizona, and then you looked out into nature. It's like a wash. And so, like, it's always, I just sort of really never paid attention. And then all of a sudden I started having my spiritual awakening, and I was like, I don't ever want to leave this place. Look at the bird land on that tree, look at the bunny, look at the this, look at that. Like, and I just like, it was just like, oh my gosh, like, yes,
Yeah.
like an awe of nature. And I have to say, I think my husband is having a spiritual awakening, because we went out for St. Patrick's Day and we were in a crowded bar.
Yeah.
And we were inside, and then we're like, oh, let's go outside. It's really crowded in here. So we go outside, and it was still really crowded. And we're kind of like a little out of place, because we're not in that place in our lives where we just want to go and like drink a whole bunch, but we wanted to,
Yeah.
partake in St. Patrick's Day. And so we're just kind of sitting there, and we're a little out of place. He goes, look at that tree over there. Isn't it beautiful? I just
Shocked.
started laughing. And I was like, oh my gosh. And all this chaos and commotion, and just like, you find the tree and comment on how beautiful the tree is.
That's awesome. That's good.
So that is like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. So he's totally there. Like that feeling of
Yeah.
awe, like just loving
Yeah.
nature, finding beauty in like the stillness. And then, yes, and then I started meditating. And I will say, when this was like all happening, I was like, I just want a manual of like how to get through this, or how to like get better with my mediumship, or how to get better at life. Like, doesn't matter. Every single place I looking for what are you supposed to do? They were like, there is no directions. You have to go within. But if they were to say one thing, it would be meditate. And that is like, I think the key to, I think honestly, it's the key to like all healing, because it helps you regulate your nervous system. It helps you take perspective of situations. It helps you ground yourself. It helps you like find time for your, like, it helps you calm your body. It helps you get out of that fight or flight stress. Like
Yep.
it has. And that is honestly why I first started doing it, was because people were like, oh, meditation's so good for you. And I was like, oh, okay, what is this meditation thing? Let me try it.
Mhm.
And not even realizing that it was like kind of like I'm on a health path and I'm on a spiritual path. I had no idea that they were the same path.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, but through and through, meditating has been instrumental in my awakening
I agree.
and my self-healing.
Yeah, I agree completely. What would you say to somebody that really struggles with meditation and they're not quite sure how to start doing that? What would you say to them?
Okay. So I would say what I did, because I was there too. The first time I ever meditated, I was like, I don't even know what I said. Like your monkey mind,
Mm.
it gets going. Like, I don't have time to sit here for 5 minutes. I don't have time to sit here for 10 minutes. I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. Or you've got time, you're breathing. And then all of a sudden you're like, why did she say that to me today? Or why did I do that? Or I should have done this. Or like 100% get
Yeah.
it. Doing yoga first
Yeah.
was very helpful for me, and doing walking meditations was very helpful for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yoga, I did yoga this morning. I kind of woke up and I was in a bad mood,
Mm-hmm.
and I went down and did yoga, and like there's something about like how the breath is connected to the movements. It like moves the energy out, and I just feel like it A, put me in a better mood, and B, it just moves the energy to like regulate your body, and ground your body and put you in a better uh, state of being to
Mm-hmm.
then sit there and meditate and do guided meditations. Guided meditations are great.
Yes.
And some will work and some won't work. Some people you'll love and some people you just won't jive with. And that's just the way it goes. But if you find someone that you really like, stick with them.
I think guided meditations, that's how I started, was with guided meditations, because my original connection or wanting to do meditation was because of my anxiety, my stress, and because I had been an addict and taken pills, and those pills would calm me down. They had a relaxational effect. And so I was seeking a natural way to be able to give that to myself. And so you know, my desire, really, that started during my cancer treatment, because some of the fear that I felt and the worry, I would try and take that and put it into a focus, close my eyes and just do some visualization and those types of things. And I'd always done that sort of thing throughout my life. But it's interesting when you said, I realized that everything was connected. I
Mm-hmm.
remember that. And I can't tell you exactly at what point that happened, but I remember just saying, wait a minute, like everything in my life is connected. Like my body, my mind, my my health, my nutrition, my like nothing is separate. There's nothing that is separate. And I
Oh my
remember like
gosh.
having that epiphany, and then having the epiphany that everything is relationships. Like everything is about my relationship with food, my relationship with my husband, my relationship with my kids, my relationship with the community, my like everything with myself,
Yeah.
you know?
I think we have such a disservice living in like the Western hemisphere with westernized medicine where everything is compartmentalized. You go to
Yes.
this specialist who does
Yes.
not talk to this specialist. You
Right.
go to that specialist who doesn't talk to this specialist. And like you're compartmentalized, and really it is all connected. And that was, I mean, I kind of had an inkling, like I kind of figured
Yeah.
that out,
It
but
was like
then once it
having
like,
it was like having an affirmation, or I don't know, affirmation,
yes,
confirmation to something that you
yes,
knew deep down inside. So when you heard it, it was like, yes. It was like that.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, exactly like that.
Hmm.
So that was definitely one of the biggest one, I would say. And I did walking meditation. I found this lady on, I was like, I don't know what I Googled, but I was like, what is meditation? And I put in something meditation, and I found this lady, and she was amazing. And she has since like taken all of her podcasts off of whatever platform I was listening to it on, unfortunately. But she just was like, you would just breathe with her and she would teach you, and it was just, she was amazing. So just find someone that works with you, and just again, what she did for me was she like changed my perspective of like just everything. And like one of the things that I feel like they said it on the same day, but I feel like Eric said it in a show, and then she said it like in the meditation right afterwards, and I was like, oh, this must be for me. Was relationships. If you're having problems in relationships or in any kind of situation, change yourself first.
Oh, yes.
Don't focus on what the other person is doing. Focus on yourself. And I was like, okay, I got it. I'm gonna focus on myself. And like that was definitely a huge catalyst to this, because it made me really take so much more interest in my health, my well-being, and my journey. So,
and that's, that's a big thing. I know it has been for you, and a big thing for me as well, because I spent most of my life so focused on how I felt based on the people around me, but not taking control of taking responsibility and really examining myself and taking care of myself. I was taking care of other people and trying to continuously control my outside circumstances.
yeah.
And all that would do is sometimes perpetuate a cycle, or
Yeah,
like
you
it was just running through the marathon over and over again on different days. So things might look a little different, but it was the same stuff over and over and over.
I feel like when you do that, it's like, well, you said this, well, you said this, well, you said this, well, you said this, well, you do this, well, you do this, if you focus on the other person. But when you focus on yourself, you just get better and better and better, and they either come with you or they don't. But at the end of the day, you're up here, you're doing better, you've bettered yourself, and it's up to them to figure out if they want to better themselves too. So,
and how that translates to energetically is, we, like Eric always says, we're God in the bod, right? So we I know we're God in the bod, but with us, we are God. So respecting the God that we are in our
yeah,
life, taking care of that God. So knowing that everywhere we go, this is God. This is
yeah,
God is in everything, and it is in us. But we can only work with the God in us,
yeah,
our own relationship with God, our own relationship as the being of God, as creation. And so vibrationally, when we start to have those realizations, that's what's happening. Like through a spiritual awakening, what's taking place is, you may have lived in your life where your vibrational frequency, because we're all energy and everything is vibrational frequency, our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings, our body holds frequency, everything is a frequency. So what happens is, when you're having more awareness, that information is more light coming into your auric field, right? So that's what's happening, is you're releasing densities. So that might look like things like, I'm having realizations. I'm realizing this that I've done in my life is no longer working, and I'm going to let it go. I'm going to change it, allowing that space to then do something different. And sometimes it crosses over and happens because it's not really a linear path. However, when there's other people involved, what happens is, we energetically, without speaking, when we take care of ourselves, we don't even have to speak. We work at the God within us. And energetically, all those within our life and around us are affected by our energy. Most people that are awakening in a family where they are awakening first. or the only one, or feels like the only one, and then the other family members tend to follow, or it will change, like you said, because when you vibrationally shift, you no longer are a match to other people that you may have been at one time. So,
Mhm.
when you start to grow and change, it's actually bent right down to this vibrational frequency, and think of it as your magnet is now repelling. And that's either going to create opportunity for change for the people that are with you, that they're either going to start to make those changes, which is actually happening energetically first, and then those changes will start to happen, or there'll be the universe alignment makes changes for you. So that's when jobs start to just go, like somebody says, oh my God, what's happening in my life? My job just, like I just lost my job, and now my friend of 30 years is now moving across the country, and like all these things are changing. Well, you're changing. So maybe that job is not good for you anymore. Maybe that friend is on a different path. And it doesn't mean that all people are just going to be cut out of your life, but there's a lot of divine intervention that takes place as we vibrationally grow. And, I've had some people that said, well, I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want this spiritual awakening. But there's always something deep down inside that they're looking for to change. And so, no matter where you are in the process, if you're recognizing that there is change happening, it's also happening because we're in an ascension period. We're having a major planetary shift, and we're having the largest shift in consciousness that has taken place for something over 3,000 years. So it's a big moment in history that we're all experiencing, but we're not all experiencing it exactly at the same time. We're doing it in these, like Dolores Cannon says, in shifts. She talks about the different
Mhm.
waves or the shifts. But it's really interesting, and it's absolutely incredible, because I think this is something we could talk about really for hours, because there's just so much.
Yeah.
But so what are some
Um,
other things so if this is happening, what else could they do
yeah.
besides
So,
meditation?
um, you talk about raising your vibrations. So everything around us affects our vibrations. So that's what a spiritual awakening is you raise your vibrations and you just kind of come to this new realization. And so negativity. So you're saying we're gonna work on ourselves, and we might get rid of the negative people. Well, also negative things in our life, like the news, and like, hate to say this for everybody, but like scary shows. Like I don't watch scary shows anymore.
Yeah.
Um, and like, so some of these things, like I didn't know I was having a spiritual awakening, and some of these things just happened because of just coincidence. Like
Mm.
I had young kids. You can't turn on the news when you have young kids. I still can't turn on the
Mhm,
news.
mhm, mhm.
Um, and I didn't realize, like, time and time again, as I was looking up spiritual awakening, or like they would say, oh, get rid of the news, don't watch the news. Or remember, like there would always be the mediums, and there'd be like this big news event, and you guys would do the readings, and they'd be like, oh, I don't know about this news event because I don't watch the news. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't watch the news? That's who doesn't watch the news? And now here I am, I'm a mom with kids. I don't ever watch the news, and I don't have the news app. I have like the free news app. So it's like you get the title and then you click
Yeah,
on, and they're like, oh, you can pay. So like I get titles. That's all I get.
yeah.
Um, but that has actually, I think, been really important. Like I'm not starting my day off with negativity.
Mhm.
There's like be very mindful of the hour of power, which is the half hour before you go to bed and the half hour when you wake up. And if it's the nightly news and the morning news and it's all negative, your hour of power is filled with negativity.
Yeah.
But if it's, reading a book or just having a coffee and journaling, or just
That
not even doing anything, just having coffee, then that could really help you too.
and the thing is as well, like, so, and just speaking about the news and what we're bringing into our minds, because if you think about it, it's nutrition. And so
Yeah.
we're looking at the nutrition that we're bringing into our body, whether it be into our our stomachs, into our systems that we're living off of, but we're also living off of what we're bringing into that auric field and into our mind. And there may be, like, right now, let's say if you're in a place where the news really affects you, you're hearing this, or you already know as we're talking about it, yes, I'm not able to watch the news. It really does affect me. There are, like, we canceled our like our regular cable satellite. We canceled all of that, so we don't have the news channels. Now we do have some, like you said, like highlights. We'll get highlights of different events that are going on. So if we choose to see something, we can. But I mean, I've got my parents that live next door, and if there's something that I really need to know, they do watch the news. So they'll always bring it up if there's something really big that's going on. But for the most part, you know, as you're building your frequency, because here's the thing, as you ascend and as you grow, your vibrational states start to balance out. You start to ground yourself. You start to be able to understand your empathic energy, the openness. So rather than having everything stream within yourself, you start to balance it out. So there may be a time where you can, and maybe you won't want to, like, let's say if you watched a lot of TV that was violent, and at one time you watched it, but it affected you. I mean, you're going to get to a point where you never even want to watch it again. But there may be a time where you will see something like that, or something you come across, and it won't affect you the same way, because as you balance yourself out. So same for the news, if you're able to go in and just kind of look at the titles or the highlights, pick what you want to watch. As you balance yourself out, there's going to be things that you just don't do anymore because you're not even drawn to it anymore. And that goes for food as well, because our
and
nutrition.
alcohol.
Yes.
That's so funny, because like I when I was going through my spiritual awakening, I couldn't eat hamburgers anymore. I would throw up every single time I would have I was like, I don't know, like maybe I'm allergic to red meat now. Like, I don't know, I don't understand, but I could. It just felt so heavy in my stomach. And same with like drinking. It's like I'll have one glass of wine and I feel like I had a whole bottle.
Yes.
Like it doesn't. And so now it's like, I don't even want to. Every now and then I do drink, but it's like, I don't want to, because I'm like, I don't want to feel like I had a whole bottle.
Yes.
I have to function. Like I have, like, I don't want all these negative side effects, because my higher vibrations cannot meld with the lower vibrations. I can still do it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It just doesn't.
No.
It just doesn't
and
drive it.
That's exactly it. That's not a judgment. That is a true, and I can attest to the same, because I used to have my glasses of wine and wine on the weekend, or wine with friends, and I have no desire whatsoever, because anything above a glass. Okay, so if I have, like, at Christmas time, I'll have like a like Irish cream in coffee or something like that. Anything past that one cup, can't do. Even that one cup is, do I really want to have that, or do I not? So I have to really want to experience
that. Same here. It's like, okay, this has got to be a really good social, positive outcome in order to like put myself through that, because it's so.
And I cannot, for me to enjoy a beer, like I really like dark beer, like really dark ale. And for me to really enjoy a glass of that, I can't be channeling the next day. I can't be like, it just doesn't fit with my, with my regular schedule, because of how it makes me feel later.
Oh yeah.
So it's not really worth it anymore.
Yeah, I know. It's unbelievable how that happens. I would feel like that's like more of this ascension symptoms, like, you can't drink alcohol anymore, like, and then I will say one other thing, as far as that's very helpful for, and this one I will say I just learned, is breath work.
Yeah.
I have such a fun update to tell you, Michelle.
Okay.
I think this literally like has been realized since that dream where I was in the cold water and I was
Yes.
breathing. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So I think that dream has like changed my life. It was like the Wim Hof on steroids dream. Like
Yeah.
it, there was something so peaceful and so grounding about like how deep my breaths were and how like rhythmic they were,
Yeah.
and how I wasn't scared that like, you would think you'd come up and you'd want to like blast up and get this full breath of air, but that I could only just tilt my face and like breathe. So like how controlled that breath in had to be. Like I just still remember it. Like that's why I'm like, it has to be real, because like it is just ingrained into my body. Like that experience was so three-dimensional. And I hate the cold. Like literally hate the cold. I have space here in my office. I'm always wearing my heated vest. I have a heated vest. I sit by the fire. I have like, I mean, my husband just like makes fun of me because I'll wear my like full wool socks with my wool slippers, with my heated vest, with the robe on top, like maybe even a coat. Like I'm just hate the cold.
Yeah.
And so, we had like a little warm snap here, and now all of a sudden it's like 2 degrees today. Like
Yeah.
what in the world happened?
Same. Yeah.
And so I kind of got used to getting out and about when it was warm, and then now it's cold again, and I'm like, I don't want to stop it. So I've been going out, and normally I would like, clench, like I would be so clenched. And even like the whole first year that we were here, my back hurt. And I was like, I don't understand why my back hurts. And I'm like, oh, it's because I'm like this all day long because it's
Yeah.
so cold.
Right.
And so now when I go out and and I like walk, or I'm walking the dog or walking between buildings at work or whatever, or walking to this St. Patrick's Day party. It was so long, and my husband kept going like, oh my God, it's cold. I can't believe this weather. And like, I was just sitting there so relaxed. I just relaxed my shoulders and I just go, and I just think about like how refreshing the cold feels. Like I've changed my perspective. I focus on my breathing, and like it doesn't bother me anymore. I mean, like I don't want to be stuck out there, but I don't clench. Like I really focus on my breath work.
Yeah.
And so like I noticed that I've been doing that, since that dream, like just focusing on my breath work when I'm getting the cold. And then I noticed that when we were walking to the St. Patrick's Day thing, my husband was like, making so many comments about how cold it was. And I was just sitting there like super calm, super relaxed, just doing my breathing. And I was like, oh my gosh, like
That's amazing.
And I just thought, wow, like if there's anything that you can do for yourself, just breathe, like teaching yourself how to be a conscious breather and like get in touch with your breath work is really, really helpful. Like I'm shocked. So
yes, and it gets the blood flowing, right?
yeah,
Oxygenates the body and gets the blood flowing. And so what would you like, what are some other things like for breathing, like gosh, it would work for emotional, like for
it does.
emotional, mental, like there'd be all kinds of things that could be used for.
For everything. So your breath, so they say like when you have anxiety, like you start to get like headed, or you start to have shallow breathing, which can give you an upset stomach. And like there's all these things because your breathing changes, because your body is thinking that there's a danger, and that you need to get into like fight or flight mode to like either run really fast, or so the oxygen in your blood decreases. And so you start to feel all these physical symptoms. That's what gives you the butterflies in your stomach. That's what gives you, because what happens is the butterflies are actually the feeling of your digestive system shutting down so it can conserve energy to go into your muscles to run.
Right.
And so when you breathe, you put all that oxygen back into your blood, and you tell your body, no, there's not a danger. So it is like super, super good for anxiety. Yeah. And I've been getting like, I think when spirits come around me, like that's one of the things that happens to me is I get anxious. I like feel their energy, and it makes me like really anxious, and I feel like all my like blood pressure like rise up into my head, and it's a very uncomfortable feeling. And so I've been like breathing through that, and it's like really been helping as well. So
And what is so when you're talking about the breathing, like is there like a anything that you're thinking? Like are you counting? Are you how do you do it?
Yes. So it's really important to have a pause between your inhale and your exhale, because that gives your exhale like more of a out, like it's more of a release, and it feels really good the longer you can hold. But it's really funny because you can tell how like tense or stressed you are throughout the day. Sometimes I can only breathe in for a count of 3. And then sometimes I can breathe in for a count of 8.
Right.
So so you just breathe in, pause, breathe out, pause, breathe in, pause, breathe out, pause. But just do it at your level. Can I only get to the count of 3, then pause, and then out for a count of 3, then pause? That's fine. If you can get to a count of 8 and then pause, great. Or can you work it up? Like my first 4 breaths need to be 3 inhales in, and then maybe my next 4 breaths can be 4 inhales in, whatnot. And then breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth is really helpful to me. Sometimes like obviously I don't like when I'm outside, I don't want to be like, so I'll do in and out through my nose so I don't look like the weirdo, but yeah.
That's amazing. I know
Sometimes you can, but
Eric talks a lot he advises that to a lot of people with breathing. And something that he uses quite a bit that we guide people with is doing that 4x4. That 4 in.
That's the same, right? Hold for 4, 4 out. Hold. That's square breathing. I think that's what that's called. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is
so
really helpful.
Whatever you can do.
Yeah.
I hope it does, because it has really, I mean, and just how many weeks ago was that dream? Like 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And I'm already seeing bigger changes.
Yeah.
So
that's incredible.
It's incredible.
You know, I'm looking behind you, and your lamp, the way that the light is on, looks like angel wings coming off your lamp. Can you see that?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like an angel standing there.
There was a huge orb, a huge purple orb in here earlier when you were talking. So maybe.
Yeah, I thought you saw something. Yeah. Archangel Metatron.
Oh, because he's the power of your thoughts, right? So yeah.
Pretty awesome. What else? So anything else that you
so I think that is like the thing, like chase the awe, have moments of silence in your meditation, figure out your breath work, which really regulates your nervous system, which can help also with that. We all get triggered, right? Like in life, and that's what makes you emotionally want to like go out. But when you can control your emotions, breath work, you can really let that power go, and let that energy not get into your aura. And I think that's really important. But so just being open to trying new things like breath work and meditation, and that Metatron could be here just for little old me. And chasing that feeling of awe, because it is so amazing, that feeling of fullness, and my cup runneth over, like your heart expanding, meditating, breath work, getting rid of, you're getting rid of the negative influences, or maybe you're just not even attracted to them at all. So if you're doing these things, you're definitely having a spiritual awakening.
Yes.
If you are trying to have one, these are some things you could implement into your routine. And then as far as like my symptoms of spiritual awakening, because I didn't realize I was having one until you were like, do you know that you've had a Kundalini awakening? And I was like, what? I had no idea. What is that? But I had I started my symptoms were like, I started to feel my chakras.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what chakras were,
Mm-hmm.
um, or if they were real.
Mm-hmm.
But yet I
Mm-hmm.
was feeling them.
Yeah.
So I would feel my solar plexus open, and that felt like anxiety to
Yes.
me.
Yeah.
I felt my heart kind of like, again, that fullness feeling. I feel like that's your heart chakra.
Yes.
But I also called it my love beam because I could feel
Yes.
it shoot out to
Yes.
people.
Yes.
Had
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was getting headaches, and after I would meditate, sometimes I would be so dizzy that I felt like I couldn't leave the house. I was like, it's not safe for me to like drive right now. I'm so dizzy
Yeah.
after a meditation. And I was like, why? What did I do? But what I was doing was lifting my vibrations. I had no idea.
Yes.
And I wasn't used to that. And it all tapers off, like you said,
Yep.
you get regulated until a
Yep.
new one comes around, and then
Yep. Yep.
experience it all over again.
And that's because it's cycles, because everything has cycles. So we go through these cycles and it's not linear. So we can have something come back around and experience it again or a little differently, because everything, the awakening process is, there are layers that are being removed, and we can equate that to our reality, to our emotions, there's just so much that's happening. And as we're vibrationally shifting and the planet's vibrationally shifting, that's what we're going to feel it. We're going to feel it in our body,
Yeah.
and the dizziness and whatnot. And there was something else that it's completely gone out of my mind now. There was something else that popped in a second ago that I wanted to say, and I can't remember what it is now. Should have wrote it down. I can't remember.
Of a symptom, something of a symptom, or something to do.
It'll come back later. I don't know.
Okay.
Must not be
I know
important.
I'm trying to think of other symptoms, but I feel like obviously I started seeing orbs and
Yeah.
hearing
Yes.
voices, but
Yes. Oh, I
I
know what
don't.
I was gonna say. Okay,
Oh,
now I got
good.
it. Is that when we're having our spiritual awakening, often um, in the beginning, there can be so much intensity and that feeling of excitement, that feeling all of those things, and they're part of it, so that um we have that draw. It's like that fire burning within us to continue to seek. We tend to have experiences as well. Like many people will talk about, like you said, with the orbs and seeing things. And something that I've recognized, and this did happen to me as well, is like things were moving real fast, seeing all kinds of things. I'm experiencing things, I'm hearing things, tingles on the head. That was something that I started to experience, was I could feeling the chakras. I could feel tingles on my head and on my shoulders. Didn't know what it all meant at the time, but I was feeling it. A lot of these things can become very intense or be very intense in the beginning, and then a lot of people will say, well, I felt all this and then it stopped, and now I'm like, what's next? Or like, what am I doing next? And so then begins this kind of like seeking and trying to understand what just happened. Why did this just happen? Why did I have this intensity and now I don't? And what Spirit has explained to me is that we have those experiences because we often go through a cracking open, a certain amount of cracking open. And a lot of the experiences that we have helps us. It's like we have our own experience to see, to hear, to feel, to recognize, because it's very hard for us to, like, when we have it ourselves, somebody else can tell us, I saw a spirit, I saw this happened to me, I heard this. Somebody else can say that, but it will mean more when you have the experience yourself. And that is kind of like a sneak peek, because your vibration does a quick whoo right in the very beginning. And so that's often where we feel things speed up, and that can be anxious too. But then it starts to mellow itself out. And so if that is happening to you, that's just part of it. So the best thing you can do is just flow and do the things that you've said with the meditation, with the breath work, because those things will not only help balance and help you balance, but they'll help you expand more. And
Mhm.
this usually that's when we start really getting into the deeper stuff, like the triggers and the emotions and all of
Mhm.
those things. So, and everybody's path is very different. And something else too, I was just thinking, yoga, and I'm sure Kundalini yoga with breath work and whatnot. A lot of people will have spontaneous spiritual awakenings doing yoga and doing Kundalini yoga, working with the chakras and everything. So,
Yeah, that I did it like I was like, I'm gonna get really into yoga and I want to try out all the different types of yoga. And so then I would just get on YouTube and be like, Hatha yoga, Kundalini yoga,
yeah,
Vinyasa yoga. And I did Kundalini once.
uh,
And I don't know, because obviously I had a spiritual journal, but I didn't write like I did this type of yoga on this day because I didn't realize they were connected.
mm-hmm,
I just thought I was doing my exercise and then I was doing my meditation. I didn't realize
yep,
that it was the same.
yeah,
But I always wonder, I'm like, the day that I did the Kundalini yoga, and I have gone back to it a couple times, but I remember it was very intense breath work. You
yes,
did the breath of fire, which is where you breathe in
yes,
and out
yes, yes,
very
yes.
fast.
I've done that.
And I'm like, was that right before all this happened? I don't know.
Well, that
So
that definitely was part of it. That was
yeah,
part of it. Yeah, and like you said, if you're wanting to have a spiritual awakening, well, it's time. There's a
yes,
reason. If you've got that desire in you and you're saying, yeah, I want to experience this, you are having a spiritual awakening. It's happening.
yes, I agree. If you are curious, it's happening because that was the little seed in me at first. I was just curious.
Yeah,
And that fills you with light. And that's what enlightens you and raises your vibrations. The more filled with light you are, the higher vibrations you have.
right. And
So
and just to add to part of experiencing um, this accelerated path that we're on, um, is really accepting what doesn't feel good as part of it. Like allowing ourselves to be in it, to examine it so that we can release it, because there really is no bypassing. We're not going to really be able to bypass um, within us what needs to be released. And like Maren and I were talking before, and talking about how um, a lot of us are releasing and healing for our families, like our ancestors. So there's a lot of reasons why things are happening, and if you don't exactly understand why this is happening, why am I experiencing this, why is this important, you know the best thing to do is follow what feels right for you,
yes,
right?
the
No
ah,
matter what,
follow that.
follow the follow what feels right, and just keep going forward, because none of us are um none of us are being held back. Eric always says that we have far more control over our journey, or far more. It's not like somebody else is leading us through this. We have guidance, but it's us. We are doing
Be
this.
truly
So,
the creator.
yes,
Yeah.
we are the creator. We are God in the bod. We
Oh
are.
my God, I love it.
Yeah, yeah. But anything else you wanted to add, Maren?
That's it.
That's it. That was
I
good.
feel like just really quickly, I'm sure a lot of people have heard about the dark night of the soul. That just came
Mm-hmm.
to me too.
Yeah, yeah,
Which is usually like the I want to say predecessor, but that's not the word. But that's kind of comes before the spiritual awakening. It's what gets you into the curiosity stage.
yeah.
So I don't think you necessarily need a dark night of the soul if you're just curious, but a lot of times that is what facilitates the curiousness. So
Yeah.
if you've heard about that and you're like, oh, I want a spiritual awakening, but I don't want a dark night of the soul. I don't know if you necessarily have to have a dark night of the soul to have a
No,
spiritual awakening.
I mean, we all have things in our life that whatever, if we've had a trauma or we've had grief or those kind of things. So there's different things that might come up, but is everybody going to be diagnosed with cancer or go through addiction? Or we were talking about some of the things that I've been through, which there's people that have been through far worse than I have,
Mhm,
and it's not judging what we've been through, but it's you know we don't all have to experience those things.
mhm.
So if that's something that you're afraid of, come at it with love, because even what's coming up and being called, like, it's kind of scary when you say dark night of the soul. Like, it's this ominous, like, look
Well,
out for what's about to come. That's Eric saying that, like, whoa, you know.
well, because that's why. So I was like, I think I'm having a spiritual awakening, and then I'd Google spiritual awakening on YouTube, and it'd be like, well, first you have the dark night of the soul, and I was like, well, I don't think I did. So I guess I didn't have, I'm not having a spiritual awakening, but I don't
Well,
think you have.
and it can happen in different ways, and that's the thing, that actual saying dark night of the soul has an ominous feel to it, but it doesn't always have to be that way. But if you think about the changes in your life, and like Josh's mom passing away, and think of all of
COVID,
those to COVID, all of, like, that's all part of it. What it is it's the challenges,
the
it's
catalyst
a
that
catalyst
creates
for change.
change.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's because of Josh's mom that
Mhm.
led us together.
Yes,
Yeah,
that is true.
yeah,
That is true.
yeah, very true. So, well, that's it for today, folks. So, thanks for joining us once again. And we will see you next time in the same place, same time. Bye
Yes,
for
thank you
now.
all so
Bye,
much for
everybody. Have a
supporting
great,
us.
yes, thank you. Have a great week, everybody.